Welcome to Nevada Newsmakers. Today we are going to be talking to entrepreneur and economist Dusty Wunderlich about Tesla, economic development incentives, and the social score from big data, plus our Power Pundit panel. That's next on an all-new Nevada Newsmakers.
From your house to the White House, the folks at D&D Roofing can get it fixed with their eyes closed.
Nearly 200,000 Nevadans work in retail businesses, supporting families and the community. Nevada's retail businesses generated over $2 billion in sales tax revenue in 1 year, including nearly $700 million to help our schools. Shop around and see all that Nevada's retailers offer our state.
We're the Retail Association of Nevada, representing thousands of Nevada businesses.
Businesses that work for Nevada.
Pro Group Management is the place where companies can find workers' comp solutions that are designed to meet their specific business requirements. As regulations evolve, Pro Group takes a proactive approach to clear the path to make sure your business stays ahead of the curve. Knowing your workers' comp program is optimized, you can focus on other important matters related to your growing business. Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
Safety is the #1 priority for the trucking industry. Over $7 billion a year is spent on technology like this electronic eye that will apply the brakes automatically. But the most important factor for safety is the truck driver. These hardworking men and women who safely move over 70% of our nation's freight and 94% of Nevada's. We thank you because trucks move America forward.
This is Nevada Newsmakers with host Sam Shad, a no-holds-barred political forum. Now, from the Nevada Newsmakers broadcast headquarters, here is Sam Shad.
Welcome back to Nevada Newsmakers. I am here with Dusty Wunderlich, who is an entrepreneur and economic theorist. And Dusty, if somebody wants to read your stuff, they can go to...
They go to my personal website, which is www.dustywunderlich.com.
Piece of cake. So yeah, easy. So, okay, one of the papers that you wrote back in November, and there's been some Twitter activity from some of the folks at GoEd, and then there was an article in the Reno Gazette-Journal, was talking about the Tesla effect. And, you know, you talk about it, yes, it does create jobs, but, you know, there are some trade-offs, and, you know, some of those trade-offs do have some impacts. So what are some of those trade-offs we've seen here in Reno? Because we have seen a tremendous amount of growth, and if you own a house, you'll love seeing your home prices go up.
Right. Yeah, you know, the devil's in the detail with these, and, you know, after monitoring and keeping an eye on this deal for the last, 3 or 4 years, what I started to notice is that there's some nuances that we really need to think about. And when you look at GoEd's strategy in general, I would say they have an overemphasis on capital goods versus consumer goods. And that has a consequence because as humans, and we look at human action, we want goods in the present versus the future. So, and the only way we can start thinking about the future is when we accumulate enough goods to save to start thinking and investing in the future. So what we've done with deals like Tesla is we've incentivized Tesla to come in and do a lot of investment into capital goods, right? Which is great. It creates jobs, but it's building factories.
Yeah, it's building. Yeah, it's building factories.
Data centers, things like that, things that we're not going to consume, right? So.
Oh, maybe. I mean, we're not going to consume a factory, but what they make out of that factory.
For sure, but it's a bet on the come,
bandwidth.
Right, in the future. But what happens is, so Tesla's going to come in and they're going to hire people at just a little bit higher wage than what they're already getting, right? So what is that doing? It's taking scarce resources, our labor, away from people that might be, in grocery stores, daycare, building homes, which you've seen with the huge, housing shortage.
Yeah, I know it's taken me a long time to get an electrician to come over to my house.
Exactly, and so what happened there is now we've moved them to Tesla, and they're now investing into capital goods, their labor into capital goods versus consumer goods, and this is why we've seen an increase in price. So I mean, I saw a report the other day that we've had a 22% increase in cost of living. I think San Francisco is at 28%, one of the highest since from 2012 to 2017. I think this is primarily due from an overinvestment in capital goods. And
now, does that change when they're done building the factory? I mean, I love to see factories built because they make stuff, and the stuff that they make usually comes on the back of a truck. So I mean, for me, you know, I love that.
For sure. Well, I mean, you got to look at the products, right? What are we incentivizing? I mean, we're incentivizing, in this case, electrical cars, right? I think there's a very small percentage of people that are probably going to buy Tesla cars in this Nevada market. So the argument comes, are we really doing our economy, you know, a good by doing that? Because now we're having a shortage in goods that are commonly, you know, consumed by consumers on a daily basis, and we're reallocating those labor resources to products that our consumers might not buy in Nevada. And this is kind of where the nuances in the data, and like, I think one important piece is we continue to hear like, hey, there is economic growth, but when you really look at it and you take it on a per capita basis with the population growth we have, we're really not growing. It's actually been a decline, and far worse than other business cycles in the past. And I think it's because, you know, at the end of the day, GDP is finished consumer goods, and it's an overemphasis on these capital goods. So we're actually not driving a lot of actual economic growth out of this.
So when you talk about economic growth, I mean, you get down to the individual, right? I mean, yeah, Tesla's coming in, and we have these companies coming in, and they are paying a higher wage. But I mean, are we seeing, you know, in terms of real dollars, in being able to, you know, go out and buy a home, buy vehicles? I mean, I know everything's more expensive now. One of the things you mentioned is, you know, childcare. Right. You know, kind of seeing all these costs go up. I mean, where do we stack today, you know, versus a decade ago?
Unfortunately, very poorly. I mean, when you look at, and you'll hear a lot of, and the narrative that's controlled by the state is one, they want to look positive, right? They did these deals, so you'll hear like, hey, we've had X amount, and I mean, I figure it's like 90 months straight of GDP growth. But unless we're taking that into inflation into effect, so in real terms, when we take in inflation, it's really not a number we can really trust. And so when we look at median wages, for example, you know, we're far less than we've been in the past. So at 2007, we had a peak of around $65,000 of real median income. I mean, we're sitting around $54,000 right now. In 2000, it was about the same. So you look at the peak of both last business cycles, and we're roughly $10,000 to $8,000 less in real median income, but we continue to see expenses go up.
And yes, that money buys less. I mean, which is kind of, you know, ultimately, you know, the stuff that does have an impact on families, you know, which, you know, may mean they have to work another job and, you know, not be there, right?
And these are the unintended consequences that we're seeing. And I believe that we're in a period of stagflation in the Nevada economy. We have stagnant growth, stagnant wages, and increased cost of living. And I think without some serious policy changes and some change in how we're thinking about economic development, this is going to continue for a long time. So we've got to remember, we're 9 years into a recovery, the second longest recovery in U.S. history, and the numbers aren't anywhere near the peaks of where they were in prior business cycles. So it's not as rosy as what we're hearing in the headlines.
I've always been somebody who said, I hate, you know, kind of these economic development incentives that we give folks. You know, just have good policy coming out of the legislature, you know, have a good regulatory system to work. But, you know, the other side would say, well, everybody else has these, and we don't have that ability to get these kind of companies if we don't have these incentives. So, I mean, if you're going to design a system that works, I mean, what would it look like?
So I think it's actually pretty simple, and that's the common argument that we hear, right, is everybody else is doing it. But I think it's built on a faulty premise. It's a fallacy in itself, you know. I think when you really look at the numbers, I mean, you know, 90+% of our job growth is coming from homegrown firms that are less than 5 years old. So these are new firms, startups, and, you know, we want to keep that here. We want to support those. And I think it really comes down to, you know, regulation, making it easier for entrepreneurs to do their job. I mean, you look at what it takes to get a business license in the city of Reno, it's brutal. We have occupational licensing has to be reformed. We're the second worst in the country, 30% of our occupations, and this is the daycare issue, right?
And barbers, I mean, try to get a haircut too. You're out a week to get a freaking haircut.
Right, absolutely.
So my beard isn't shaved.
Have to do it on your own now. And then, low taxes. I mean, we've continued to see a slow trickle of, taxes, which it makes it very difficult for families and businesses to accumulate savings. And then we get into this cycle to where if we're not creating any savings, we really can't think to the future. We're just trying to survive in the present right now, which is currently what's happening with business and entrepreneurs.
All right, we are talking with Dusty Wunderlich, economic theorist and entrepreneur, and we are going to be right back on Nevada Newsmakers.
Tamarack Junction is South Reno's hotspot with over 450 of the latest slots and video games. Sully's Sports Bar, the Dining Car Restaurant, William Hill Sportsbook, and the Tamarack Steakhouse and Lounge. We're just north of the Summit Mall in South Virginia.
How do you shed some light on a better economy? Start with growth inspired by Valley Electric Association. We're a member-owned power company that puts Nevada first, and we're doing big things, like providing prosperity by securing renewable energy projects. For Nevada, that means more jobs and more opportunities, all for a strong statewide economy. In other words, together, we're doing powerful things. Visit us at vea.coop to learn more.
Hi, I'm Eric Robnett, owner of Home Energy Experts. Has this ever happened to you?
Honey, did you remember to turn down the thermostat?
Forgetting to set the temperature? Not fun. We can help. Our new smart thermostat keeps the temperature set for your comfort all by itself.
I'm feeling hot now.
To increase your comfort, go to homeenergyexperts.com for details. That's homeenergyexperts.com.
The signs and symptoms of cataracts can start out small with subtle changes in your vision. So don't wait. Be proactive and take your vision into your own hands. If you're experiencing the onset of cataracts or just have questions, contact your eye care professional or call Eye Care Associates of Nevada today. Dr. Hiss has years of experience specializing in the surgical correction of eye disorders and has completed over 84,000 vision correcting procedures. At Eye Care Associates of Nevada, we'll change the way you look at the world.
The Tamarack Junction Steakhouse is known for signature steaks, handcrafted cocktails, and world-class wines. Join us Thursdays and Friday nights from 4:30 to 6:30 in the Steakhouse Lounge for live music, gourmet plates, and well-priced wines, just north of the Summit Mall on South Virginia.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
Welcome back to Nevada Newsmakers. We are here with Dusty Wunderlich, entrepreneur and economic theorist. Dusty, you wrote a white paper about kind of big data. And, it's funny because I tell my kids this kind of stuff too. I mean, you talk about things like the social score, which, it's like a, episode of Black Mirror. But it's also, we are sharing a lot of stuff about ourselves. And I tell my kid, like, every time you get a free app on your phone to play some silly little game, you're giving them your data.
Right.
So, and maybe people don't care as much about privacy as previous generations, and generation a little younger than us, maybe a lot younger than us. So, talk to us about just kind of where you see them, in the kind of grand scheme of humanity today.
Sure. No, absolutely. And the paper was really driven a lot. A big economic bent to it as well. Because I think, we're using big data and we're using it in a way that we think it's a bit bulletproof, right? We hear of all these, models that we can build and scientifically controlling economies, and yet it never really works that way. And the paper is really written in the basis that we're making philosophical errors that have been talked about for 200, 300, 400 years, and we think that technology is somehow going to change those philosophical errors, which is really not happening. Human action in general is highly complex and it's very unpredictable, so it's not something that we can model. So the part that makes big data and AI really, I think, threatening to a lot of individuals or even economies or governments is that it's impersonal, right? So before, if people made a mistake as a leader, there's accountability in a humanity sense. But now with big data and algorithms, it can be blamed on an impersonal intelligence.
We see that in the stock market, right? And the stock market, there has been a psychology, in that, how people are feeling. But sometimes we see these big swings that are based on algorithms.
Right. No, 100%. I mean, the market is changed dramatically because of how algorithms been in place. But at the same time, like, if algorithms were so successful, then why do, some funds still lose money, right? I mean, there's still a human component to this. I mean, nobody is omniscient or omnipotent. We don't have all data. In fact, data is changing constantly, every second, every minute, and the market's not all-knowing. This is a big fallacy I think a lot of people and economists have made, and understanding the complexity that human action is unlike weather. It borders on chaos theory, and to model that is in the paper I make is I think a very dangerous way to go about making policy decisions or economic decisions.
It's really interesting to see the market react like it has when interest rates are going up. Because I look at interest rates going up and go, that's a good thing. I mean, that shows some strength in the economy.
Right.
But the market tends to have a different feeling about that.
Well, a perfect example of humanity, right? I mean, so on average, most times when we go into recession, rates I think in the last few cycles, they get up to at least 5%, right? And so we're already, we just raised it to 2.5%, another quarter point, and the market is freaking out. We're nowhere near any norms, right? And there's no reason why that should be other than humanity, right? And this is not something that can be perfectly modeled. We saw this with Japan and their economy and how they've tried to use QE and interest rates and have largely failed at it over the last 20 years. I mean, it's just impossible to predict what human behavior is going to do, and we can't model it.
Something else that you've gotten me interested in, and you and I have talked a lot about, is cryptocurrency.
Yes.
We saw, a year ago, or maybe a little more than a year ago, Bitcoin was at, kind of a crazy level, like $17,000. Yep. We're now, floating around?
About 3,500 about now.
3,500 now.
Yeah.
So, there's psychology in that, too.
Yeah.
And, the interesting thing about Bitcoin compared to what they call it, fiat currency, right?
Yes. Right.
There's a finite amount of that. There's a finite amount of code, as opposed to they do in Japan, just print more yen, or like we do here, print more dollars.
Right. No, absolutely. And Bitcoin is such a fascinating experiment because we're getting to see real true free market and how people set value and prices on things. And this is where you start to see the complexity of human behavior and human action. You have billions of people out there trying to figure out what is the value of something, and there's high volatility in it, and we look at that as a negative basis. We say we shouldn't have volatility, we should control this, but what inherently happens there is we create huge boom and bust cycles out of that. And because of the complexity, it's better left to individuals to voluntarily decide where they believe value is or is not. You are going to have volatility in any market, but it tends to be a little less extreme than when we try to think a centralized authority or group of people can actually control very complex systems.
Like another one of your white papers that I've read talks about that decentralization. I look at, once again, how trucking operates, a lot more efficient, decentralized than centralized.
Yes.
Hey, Dusty, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate the conversation.
Right.
And we're going to be right back with our Power Pundit panel on Nevada Newsmakers.
Dimitri Prine here for Design Outdoor. Are you a homeowner who's interested in remodeling or building a home? At Design Outdoor, we can show you how adding natural or manufactured masonry stone can add beauty and value to your home. And we refer only the best contractors. Our store and backyard are located at 11600 South Virginia, just north of DeMonte Ranch Parkway. Visit designoutdoor.com or call us at 851-9499.
One of the most psychologically damaging things parents can do to children in divorce is disparage one another, which is why I can't believe I even have to make this commercial. Half of your kids' genetics come from this person you're spewing hate about. Your children have the right to love you both, but more than that, they deserve to love themselves.
Marilyn York might be a men's rights divorce attorney, but this is for every selfish parent. Shut up.
Hi, I'm Dave Newman. Remember me? I used to be the house detective, and now I'm a realtor, full-time at RE/MAX Realty Affiliates. A lot of people ask me, how's the market? You know what? It's fantastic. If you're even kicking around the idea of buying or selling, give me a call. Let's talk about it. call me at RE/MAX Realty Affiliates and just ask for the guy who used to be the house detective, Dave Newman.
Everyone is talking about opioids, but they're not the only drugs that can be harmful if taken in large quantities or not as prescribed. You also need to be aware of side effects from anxiety drugs, muscle relaxants, sleep aids, and stimulants. Mixing prescription drugs with other drugs or alcohol can be dangerous. If you take Ambien with a glass of wine, it may be enough to stop you from breathing. Prescribed drugs can be just as dangerous as illegal drugs. Take medications only as directed.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
Welcome back to Nevada Newsmakers. We are here with our Power Pundit panel. We have Howard Rosenberg, Sam Kumar, and Mark Draper. All right, we are taping this on Wednesday. This is the day after the speech from the Oval Office by President Trump and the response by the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, and the Senate Minority Leader, Chuck Schumer. So let's just get your reactions. Howard?
I don't like hostage situations. And no matter what you say or how you say it, what's being done is wrong. And I was less than impressed with any of them speaking.
I'm going to start by talking about the manufactured crisis. Back in 1986, we gave blanket amnesty to 3 million illegals. And today, 32 years later, 33 almost, we have 12 more illegal immigrants in this country.
12 million.
12 million more illegal immigrants in this country. All anyone has to do is to walk across the border, at which time you are on American soil, say amnesty, and you're going to be caught and released. We have an open border at this time. What the president is fighting is to ensure that the border has some restrictions. Now you have a situation where immigrants are self-selecting, which is what illegal immigration is about, versus legal immigration where America selects who comes in. Just imagine for a moment how your show will look like if anyone walks off the street and says, First Amendment rights, I'm going to be on your show, and they're on this show. What kind of quality?
Hey, maybe a more interesting show, but we'll see if we can do that.
That's how I ended up here. I think it's interesting in this president's tenure, every time he puts forth a policy position, it's met with surprise and shock and horror from the other side. This was a primary campaign promise that he made. He was elected based on these promises. So beyond the need and the actual practicality of the policy, he was elected on this promise. And
and not just him. I mean, a lot of people have run on border security in the past, but I mean, I think the difference with Trump compared to, a lot of other Republicans, where you can have the other side say, yes, we support this, is Trump does it.
That's exactly right. And every
don't.
time over the last couple of years, every time he puts forth one of these policy positions, instead of it being discussed, it gets lost in, we all agree there's a lot of rhetoric and some things maybe that could be done or said in a different tone and in a different way. Yeah. But the actual practicality and the value of the policy gets lost. This discussion was coming. It's been building for a couple of years, and all of a sudden it shut everything down because instead of actually addressing the issue, it's addressing the person. Yeah. And that was evident last night as well, when you have kind of the circus that ended up being what last night was on both sides. I think that it was very evident. We're not talking about policy, we're talking about politics, and that was the part that was most disappointing.
For years I learned as being seated on the Board of Regents and on the Board of Trustees for Washoe County, no one ever gets into trouble so much as for what they're saying, the content, as it is the way it's being said. If all parties would just stop and think for a couple of minutes about the ramifications of the way you're saying something. Isn't there a way of saying it in a kinder way, where you're not holding people hostages? There are thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people
Don't you
not
think
getting
that we're
a
a little more crass? Because, I mean, I hate talking to people in email if I have to express nuance.
Yeah.
Because
you can't do it.
I mean, it's so much more, somebody more skilled than I may be able to, but I mean, things are so much more blunt today in how people communicate, whether it's on social media or what they say on Facebook, which is why I'm taking a break from all of that crap right now. But watching Turner Classic Movies instead of Fox News when I get home.
But that also, think about that for a second. You're watching Turner Classic Movies. They're from a different time, in a different place, and a different way of looking at the world than the way we're looking at it now.
It's a world where they drank a lot more too, which...
I don't know if that's good or bad, but it is a different time. We can't hold people to that today. There's nothing that scares me more than listening to some of my students over the years and the way their whole reasoning situation seems to have changed. And what they don't know can cause more problems than what they do know. And I think that's the way it is for most all of us. No one wants to see anyone hurt. But the way we're going about things, all we're doing is we're leaving, people bleeding all over the place. This isn't good. This isn't the American way.
Well, Howard, I think, we all see this every day, but I think we all would agree that the ability that we've lost any ability for diplomacy.
True.
We revere people that simply based on the way they talk, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but we've now gotten to a point where substance doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
We've gotten to, you could be very eloquent, and you're a great leader. Doesn't matter what the substance is. You could be very polarizing and divisive, and you're a terrible leader regardless of what the actual substance is. And that, for me, is very scary because that's all aesthetic and superficial. Albeit important, I agree with you. That's how you get stuff done.
But that's it, getting stuff done. We're not getting anything done. We've come to a complete stop.
Oh, there's some stuff we're getting done.
Yeah, we are getting stuff done.
We are?
Not to the extent we would like to. But look at the Syria situation as an example. Look across the board. Tax situation. We have made tremendous progress, but the fact of the matter is the media doesn't focus on any of that. And the only way the media gives you any coverage is when you throw out a statement which is completely extraordinary.
All right, we're having a great conversation. I'm going to have to end it here, but we are going to continue it tomorrow on Nevada Newsmakers.
Hi, my name's Marilyn Miner, and I'm sure you'd agree that Nevada's a very special place to live. I was born here, and my husband and I have raised our family here. I feel it's a privilege to live and work in the Truckee Meadows. I especially enjoy helping my clients reach their real estate goals. Sometimes the smallest details provide the greatest satisfaction. I'd be complimented to talk to you about your next move.
Call Marilyn Miner at Dixon Realty, 742-1280, or log on to marilynminer.com.
St. Ives Florist, for every holiday and every special occasion. For romance. Custom home design. We have the largest selection of fresh flowers in northern Nevada. And we also offer a large selection of unique gift items. Come see me, Lori Ann, at St. Ives Florist, 700 South Wells Avenue, or call me at 333-9190.
Pro Group Management specializes in providing industries with the necessary components to satisfy and exceed workers' comp requirements. Every business has unique needs and specific regulations. Pro Group Management stays ahead of the curve, providing up-to-date services to keep your industry in top form. Discover how we simplify your tasks, improve efficiency, and reduce expense to keep you moving in a positive direction. Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
I'll be back tomorrow with Captain Blair Harkleroad with the Nevada High Patrol, talking about what's going on our roads. That's tomorrow on an all-new Nevada Newsmakers. Thanks for watching and listening.